Hi, I'm Joanne Cary. Welcome back to Embodied Soul, a multidimensional space intended to support you in mastering, living, being, and thriving as the embodied soul you came here to be. In this week's episode, I'm going to talk a bit about why it's so important to get clear on what you want, why so many people don't know what they want, what happens that isn't always preferred when you're not clear, how to start creating your life consciously, why I don't use vision boards anymore, and what I now use instead as I continue this spiritual evolution. So if you're ready to join in on the conversation, please pull up a comfy chair, invite in your soul, and be open to receive exactly what you need to master living, being, and thriving as the embodied soul you are. So I'm going to start with why I believe people don't know what they want. And it applies directly to how I started opening to my own divinity, my own spiritual awakening. And it comes to being in a situation where your life just starts getting uncomfortable. You know, like how your jeans fit after the holidays, uncomfortable, and then they just keep getting more uncomfortable. And so you don't want to wear it anymore. But how do you know that your life is becoming uncomfortable? It's by understanding the things that you don't like about it. So when I was still working at the university, I started to know that I knew that I didn't want to continue to work there for another 15 or 20 years to retirement. I knew that I didn't want to feel like I was continuing to hit my head on the wall over and over again, trying to change things that didn't want to be changed. I knew that I didn't want to be living for the weekend. I knew all of the things that I didn't want. I knew there must be something more to life because that's part of the awakening process, but I didn't know what it was. And the challenge we have when we know what we don't want, but we're not clear on what we do want, it is the situation that, and we talked about it back 2 episodes ago when we're mastering our thoughts, is that if we don't know what we want, but we're focusing on what we don't like in our life, we don't want this toxic relationship, we don't want this job that feels soul sucking, we don't want these relationships that aren't healthy, these friends where you're feeling undervalued and overworked, or whatever the case is for you, that's where you're placing your focus. And so that's what you're actually getting more of. And this is kind of like what I think of as the spiral beginnings down into the dark night of the human, or the dark night of the soul, right? If you're not listening and you're not beginning to figure out what it is that you are wanting, and you haven't opened up to the vastness of who you are, then it's just going to keep getting more uncomfortable. And you're going to then continue to have these spirals and living the same experiences, getting more challenging each time. And this is really great. This process of awakening is really great because it gets you to begin looking at what is it that you actually want in your life. And this is where vision boards come in. This was one of the gateways for me, is starting to create vision boards, you know, where you cut out pieces of paper or search online and get photos, and you really focus on what are the things that I'm creating in this world? How do I feel about it? And we walk into doing meditations, visualizations, where we are actively using the law of attraction in order to be able to create the life that we love based on the things that we want, where we're no longer focusing on the things that we don't want. And again, episode 3, master your thoughts, if you are still caught in those repeat patterns. I want to take just a small tangent on consciously creating with the law of attraction. And my guides have sort of said that we're really misusing it a bit. We're thinking that this is the fundamental tool that we need to use to create the lives we want, when in fact what we were intended to do with it is to understand the fundamental principles of creation, that we are these creator beings creating the life that we're living with every thought that we're thinking. And so instead of getting these little snippets of manifestations that we're actively sort of forcing into creation, we were intended to go to the next step, to the sort of more university level or PhD level, where we understand that is our general energy and the thoughts that we think that are creating the life we want. And if we're not focused on what we want, if we're not clear on what we want, and we're really focusing on the things that we don't want because we haven't changed our life and the life is getting more constricted, then we're going to get that autopilot. We're going to get the same thing over and over again. Okay, back to my point. So I've had lots of success with vision boards. And I've pretty much stopped using vision boards for a couple of reasons. And one of them is primarily around the fact that when we're creating on a vision board, we're creating from what we think is possible, right? So when I look at my last vision board that I did, I've pretty much everything that's on it has come into reality or is literally being created and built on our mountain right now. And part of the last vision board that I did was my soul connection, was opening to my spirit more. At that point, I had opened to channeling. But here's the thing about the vision boards, and I understand that we can put this or something better, but what the guides have really been honing in on is that we are moving into the new. We're moving into the unknown. And the challenge with the new, well, is frankly that it's new. It doesn't exist yet. So there's nothing for us to cut a picture out and put on our vision board. And so I hear some people asking, well, if I don't choose something to focus on, then aren't I just like the leaf in the wind floating around? I'm rudderless, going in no direction. And I'd say no. And this is where I've moved more into. And again, there's nothing wrong with using a vision board. Please don't take it as that. It's just that I think there's a different way as we move more and more into the change in the unknown. And I think that vision boards and being really clear on the vision when you are actively bringing something into reality can be quite helpful. But I moved to a slightly broader perspective, and that moves me into values, right? So I got to the point with my guides and the trust in the support and where I'm moving on in my life, that I didn't want to restrict the opportunities that I know are possible. I believe that we are so much bigger and vaster, that we have so much more open to us than we can ever imagine right now. And so for me to put the pictures on the page, I felt was limiting me. But I thought, okay, how do I still ensure, there's still a little bit of a control, you still want to ensure that what is coming to me is something that I value, that I would want to do. Because we're here having free choice on any experience that we want, and we're being guided, and we know that we're being guided by loving hands, by our divine self and our guide team. And so I took a step back and looked at what are my values? What are the things that I desire? What are the things that that would guide what opportunities I would have, what things I would create, what purchases I would make? What are the fundamental values that I use to create a life that I love? And those are much more sort of intangible than to say, I want the house, the job, the husband, the whatever it is, the vacation. And I'll include a link in the post below that goes more into detail. I did a blog post on how I make decisions in the world and the sort of 4 values that I use to determine what things I say yes to and what things I say no to in all areas of my life. But it comes down to, I didn't care what it looked like from my guides, who it was going to be with, how it was going to show up in my life, but I did know a few things. And I knew that I wanted it to be joyful. I wanted any of the experiences I had to be joyful and playful, expansive. I wanted them to feel fulfilling. I wanted to know that they were making an impact and creating a world where anything and everything can thrive. And it's those values as you sit down to determine what is it that you want, you desire, how do you want your life to feel, and create those values. And then you tie those values that you have, those things that are really important to you, those things that will now guide how you live your life, how you create, what opportunities you say yes to. You couple that with the intention from episode 2, which is I'm only open to those energies and that information that are for my highest good in the perfect amounts needed for my healing and evolution at this time. When you couple your values with this, I want to be taken as far as I can, as sort of fast as I can to maintain the balance, and your values are the sort of underlying theme or energy that hold that intention too. So your guides have full reign to bring you your soul's lessons, your most fulfilled expression here in this lifetime. And your human part gets to feel a bit more satisfied knowing that it gets to be, in my case, joyful, fulfilling, impactful, fun. You can help create a world where everyone and everything can thrive. So, what I would invite you to feel into this week is, what are your values? Do you have those values, those principles, those beliefs that you utilize to determine what you say yes to and what you say no to in your life? And some of you, it may be family. It may be feeling more love. It may be joy. It may be peace. Each person's going to have their own values, but taking time to determine what your values are will really help with your thoughts, your beliefs, because it gives you something very clear, practical, and tangible to use in order to navigate the new. And the guides say, and this is pretty exciting, is that we're going to have so much opportunity coming to us as we continue to open more and we lift in vibration and frequency and tone more, that this is also going to help you really be able to determine what is the next highest step. What is the one that feels most expansive to me? Because there is so much incredible opportunity and potential for us as we continue to step forward and begin to materialize and align with a world without fear, a world where we can live in such an expanded state. If you've enjoyed this episode of Embodied Soul, please like it, share it, turn on notifications, and subscribe to my channel. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, please follow, share, and leave me a 5-star review. It really helps get the message out and the energies out to those who need it. And I look forward to seeing you on next week's episode of Embodied Soul.